Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our final live session for today. For those who are seeing me for the first time, my name is Ellen Ng, and I'm the Economic Development Specialist at the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation. Before we should start our chat with Elisha, I would like to remind everyone that this session has been recorded, or will be recorded actually, and we will be sharing the recordings after this event. So if you have to drop out midway to speak to a company, please go ahead and do so. So a little about Elisha. So Elisha joined Whatnot as its first full-time employee in June of 2020. And since then, the company has been recognized as one of the fastest growing marketplaces in the US, raising their Series A, B, and C from top venture capital firms, including A16Z, Y Combinator Continuity, and CapitalG. During that period of growth, Elisha played a key part in operations, partnerships, marketing, and new category launches. So wearing multiple hats, of course, in a startup. He's currently focused on scaling supply on the platform. As a native Hawaiian born and raised in Nanakuli, Elisha is passionate about helping locals navigate and leverage opportunities in the tech space through his learnings, his experience, and of course, through storytelling, like what he is here to share today. So welcome, Elisha. Let's get to the first question that, I was really curious about. You graduated right at the start of the pandemic, May 2020 to be exact, right? So how was
Yeah.
that like? Tell us about it.
Yes. So I graduated from Kamehameha in 2016 and then ended up going to Grand Canyon University in Arizona, and I graduated in 2020 and I got a degree in sports business. So I wanted to work being in Arizona, ideally for like the Phoenix Suns or the Cardinals. I thought that would be really cool. It was in the middle of the pandemic though, so they weren't even playing games, much less hiring. So I had some like job shadows set up and did not work out. They were saying no, they couldn't even let the players into the facility. So naturally, I had to pivot. And I think similar to a bunch of people here, just kind of tap into everything I could find. So I was going on like Indeed.com, going on LinkedIn, um, and just putting my name in applications. And I was to the point where it was refreshing to hear no, just because you're not hearing anything from a bunch of these. And I ended up tapping into my network as well. So just people that I established their relationship with in college or just in my career, and just kind of asking them rather than begging them for a job, more asking them if they had any advice when I'm looking. And then also at the end of that, just seeing like, hey, if you know anyone that's hiring, uh, would love to chat or get introed. And that's how I kind of came about this position. I can go more in depth later, but was the first full-time employee. So it was a true startup scenario where I was working out of the garage of the two founders and I was packing the boxes. So I was the box boy.
Awesome. So wait, before I forget, anyone who's viewing this right now, you have questions for Elisha, please throw them into the discussion and we will get to them if we can. Elisha, wasn't it hard though? Like, I mean, you were saying that it's refreshing to hear no, but like, how did you keep your spirits up? You know what I mean? After, getting either non-responses or rejections again and again and again.
Yep. Yeah, I ended up changing my perspective. So I was to the point where like I was just first off trying to apply to as many jobs as I could. And then you kind of go down the rabbit hole on Indeed of like, ooh, like if I change the salary thing, like I could maybe be making 70,000 out of college. And then I just feel like I'd almost get delusional because I'm going down that rabbit hole of trying to see everything. So I ended up pivoting where I kind of set my eyes on 5 different jobs, and some of them were like working here at Whatnot because I had a connection. One was working doing marketing at a specific accounting firm because I had a connection there, and then just like one was doing like partnerships for NBA 2K. So some of these were more achievable than others, but since I had the clarity of those 5 specific jobs that I really had my eyes set on, from there I kind of tailored my resumes and then tried to tap into every connection or every avenue that I could find, whether it be DMing people on LinkedIn, uh, shooting them an email at their like job email center. So I think that really helped of really laser focus on those specific things, and then once I got that clarity, I narrowed down to like 2 jobs out of those 5 because there's a lot more momentum. And from there, I ended up choosing here and was super blessed to. I believe I chose the right choice.
Yeah. So was, coming back to Hawaii ever a choice for you or an option at that time?
Yeah, well, I kind of have like a bigger picture mentality around it where I left to go to college just because I wanted to get that exposure of different things and actually plan on moving to LA shortly. That's where our headquarters are, just to keep grinding and learn from these people and hopefully make it big and experience a bunch of success where I can then kind of go back and give back to Hawaii and move there. I do want to raise my family there just based on the culture and kind of how I was raised is super important, and I want that to be in my kids. So, um, hopefully, not having kids anytime soon, but let's just say like a timeline of 5 or so years. I'd love to be back in the islands.
Yeah, but when you graduated, you really kind of wanted to just stay on the mainland to expand your network and your career and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, it was mainly just because when I was in university, I was like digging roots over here, just doing the extra steps to be connected with people here. So I thought the best opportunity was in Hawaii, but I'm sorry, in Phoenix, but I was certainly still kind of navigating the scene back there as well.
Yeah, we can go into that a little bit more later because clearly you're kind of giving back in your own way to Hawaii, even though you are kind of based on the mainland. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But just a quick segue, you talked a lot about using LinkedIn to network and find opportunities and so on. Any tips or advice that you can give to some of our viewers here today? I actually saw, I think you had a post about how you reach out to people, right? Like through direct messaging and so
Yep.
on. So maybe you can elaborate on that.
For sure. Yeah. So, as someone that's on LinkedIn, I bet a bunch of you have experienced getting an immediate cold message automatically pitching you on like a job or a sales opportunity or a partnership. And I kind of take the mentality of that long term approach. So, uh, kind of time plus experience equals trust, and trust is everything in business just from my short time in it. So I would like reach out to people in my field and offer to like buy them lunch or grab coffee and put it on me just so they know that I'm really not like in it to get a job immediately, but it is something where like, hey, I established this relationship. They kind of see my intentions. And throughout that time period, they get to hear a little bit more about what I'm doing. So once I'm down the road, and it could be a couple months, it could be a couple years, and I end up asking for something, it's a lot more natural than me DMing them right off the bat and saying, "Do you have a job?"
Yeah, in fact, like I think how we got connected was through LinkedIn as well. I believe you reached out, I think around August of maybe 2020, or was it 20? I don't remember. It was actually
It
some
was
time
a while
ago.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we started connecting when this whole opportunity for you to be a speaker came up and so on. So I think that was a great way for you to kind of reach back out to the local community here in Hawaii. To give back as well. I think one thing I find really fascinating when I was talking to you, in our previous conversations was about how you create opportunities for yourself, even though they might not necessarily be present at that moment, right? So I think the first one that really stood out for me was the interesting story that you shared about how you got into Grand Canyon University on the mainland. So I'm not sure if, I mean, can you share that with the audience in terms of how you actually secured your spot with the school?
For sure. So like growing up, I was definitely blessed, like getting to go to Kamehameha, and we weren't like poor by any means, but my mom did set this expectation of like, if you want to go to college, you're going to have to pay for it. So just going into my junior and senior year, I was a program player, playing basketball my whole life. I knew I wanted to go into sports business, and I knew like on the current trajectory I was on, it'll be pretty tough to afford college. So what I ended up doing was not playing my senior year of high school, and I ended up volunteer coaching for our elementary basketball team, and it was less of a time lift. So with that extra time, I used it to apply for scholarships, and uh, kind of talking about on the LinkedIn side, like setting yourself up for success. This was my time of like being able to tell a story through what I'm passionate about, which was sports business, the sacrifice of me not playing basketball in order to kind of put my, not money, but put my actions where my mouth is, really paid dividends where I was able to get a bunch of scholarships and get a full ride to go to Grand Canyon University. Was applying to a couple other places as well, but financially it made the most sense for me and ended up making the most of it, and it all worked out. So I think like a theme from that regardless of what situation you're in right now, like just setting yourself up for success. So if you want to be X, are you doing like the other things in order to get to that, whether that be your experience, whether that be your sleep and your mental health or the connections that you have. I think that's all super important and has definitely helped me get to this point.
Yeah, that's a really, wonderful story, and I always get chills when I hear of it, because it's about creating opportunities, right? And it's not easy, but you need to have faith and trust and so on. So I want the audience to be able to learn more about, Whatnot. So you're currently part of the go-to-market team at Whatnot. Tell us about the company. What's so cool about it?
For sure. So the simplest way to explain Whatnot is it's like a QVC from your phone. So if you've seen QVC before, you're usually like watching it on TV. This makes it super perfect where you're literally watching it from your phone and it connects to whatever, like the shopping portion too. So you can buy it instantly and it makes it super fun and addicting, honestly. So we really took it from live shopping in China. It's super big in China right now, where it's like a $300 billion plus market, and they're selling everything from designer handbags. There's even farmers live streaming from their farm, like picking oranges and other things. And I think because it's so interactive and you get to see it being done right in front of you and you get to see the story of the farmer, it makes it a very compelling buy in comparison to just buying it transactionally right off of Amazon. So we're starting off in the collectible space. So we saw a huge opportunity like in the US in comparison to somewhere like eBay, where a lot of people like to buy collectibles. If you're buying like sports cards or Pokemon cards, Funko Pops, some of the ones I have behind me, you're going to be super passionate about it. You want to talk about the newest things coming out, what you have to collect, and you just can't do it on a lot of these platforms that we currently have. So we thought that was a really good wedge into the market. Been a lot of momentum there, and we're still like in a really niche area and plan on broadening out as well. So I think sky is still the limit.
Mm-hmm. You wore multiple hats going into Whatnot. So what are you focused on right now in the company?
Yeah, so right now I am helping scale supply on the platform. So cool part about tech, like I know there's a bunch of different technological avenues you could take. One of them is marketplaces, and marketplaces are super interesting because you have to manage the buyer and seller side. And I didn't realize it until you're actually there, but it's really hard to recruit sellers when there's no buyers yet, and it's really hard to recruit buyers when there's no sellers yet. So that kind of cold star chicken and egg problem is something that's really fascinating to me, but very powerful, because once you get that network effect or flywheel going, it is a network effect where it can compound on itself tremendously. And the bigger that network gets, the stronger it gets, the more people want to come to it. So with that being said, I'm focused on the supply side, so the seller side. We are still closed beta, so if people want to sell live, they can't automatically do it. They have to apply. I'm kind of the gatekeeper on that front. So I handle screening, onboarding sellers, and making sure they're successful at scale at the moment. And quite a task, because there's thousands of people very and selling on Whatnot.
Oh wow, that's you have a lot of power at Whatnot. Just saying.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think another really interesting story that I want you to share with the audience is, of course, you talked about your degree being in sports administration, and then kind of like graduating in the midst of the pandemic, looking at different opportunities, but then selecting, the option to go with Whatnot. So maybe if you could just share, kind of your journey starting, like how do you find Whatnot, and then why you decided to stay and so on.
For sure. And the first thing, like tech is amazing. You guys are in the right field where I wanted to work in sports, and no offense to sports, but like I would have got paid, I don't know, 14, $15 an hour, and you're working like whatever, 8 to 5, and then you have the game at night. So you have to stay for the game, break that down. So I got offered to like pack boxes in their garage for like $20 an hour. And I was like, that's awesome. And then you end up seeing how much engineers make and learning more about equity and all these things. And I'm like, why did I ever like not want to do this? So you guys are definitely in the right field. And then in regards to my personal journey, so I ended up starting as the box boy. And when I say that, that's actually like packing and delivering items from USPS right from their garage. And at that time, our CTO was doing all the coding. I barely see him. He was in his room. And then he'd also be doing partnerships, which is kind of funny. And then the CEO was doing all the customer support and also trying to raise money. So I ended up like, as I gained trust on that box front, and I knew I could have been in a more like glamorous role somewhere else, but I knew these guys were smart. They had really cool backgrounds coming from Facebook and Goat, so I thought I could learn from them. And I was like, I'm going to be the best box boy they've ever seen, and we'll go from there. And they ended up throwing additional responsibilities to me, so I ended up taking the customer support off the CEO's back, and then helping kind of grow that team. They ended up moving to California to put headquarters there, so helped scale out operations in Phoenix, and then just continued responsibilities of launching different categories. So assisted in launching Pokemon cards, which is a huge category for us, sports cards as well. And yeah, and then here we are. I'm kind of in the middle of all that, so it's a hybrid of like an operations and partnerships role where I'm really controlling that funnel of screening to onboarding, and doing that across multiple categories.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about a couple of factors that kind of help you decide that you wanted to stay on with the company, right? So like the founders were like really smart. They came from good companies, and then there were a lot of opportunities for growth. It seems for yourself personally. What other factors do you think are important for people to kind of pay attention to if they decide whether they want to stay with a startup or not?
hmm Yeah, that's a great question. Startups are amazing where like you could get pitched on the dream of like starting at a small company and becoming big, which is really cool. And no matter if it fails or it works, like trying out different things, you get to learn a bunch of things that you wouldn't necessarily learn in a corporate job where you're doing the same thing over and over again. But the somber part of that is like 99.9% of startups fail. So sometimes you'll come out on the big ends. Sometimes you'll just come out with learning experiences. So it's super important when you're working at one to kind of see the makeup of the team, and also product market fit is super important as well. So seeing the background of the team, at least at Y Combinator, is like everything. So if you want to launch I don't know, if you want to launch a certain technology, like why are you the person that's able to launch it? Like what background do you have, or what secret sauce do you have that makes you better than anyone else that does it? And that could be experience, that could be a patent, like just kind of weighing that is important. And also the dynamic of the team as well. So it's pretty hard to hire out engineers, like outsourcing from somewhere else, because it is costly, and you're always trying to iterate on the product because you don't necessarily have that product market fit yet. So each time you make a small change, you have to talk to someone somewhere else, they charge you, etc. So having someone technical on your team, and having the right team for whatever you want to launch, super important. And then product market fit is also very important, where you should be on the ground level talking to your customers. I've heard that like a saying where it's better to have 100 people who can't live without your product than 1,000 who think it's all right. So just tapping into that, like, or whoever is like avid users of it, and having that harsh reality of, if you can't find that avid user, is it kind of a dream in your head, or do I have to iterate or pivot, etc., to find what's going to work and take it from there?
Cool. Yeah. So you've heard the advice that Elisha is giving out. So, I hope that you can consider working at startups too. So Whatnot just raised its Series C funding of $150 million about 4 months ago. You guys announced it at a time, and you're definitely hiring, like crazy. Maybe you could share with the audience what kinds of candidates are you looking for, or what do you look for candidates that are applying to the different roles at Whatnot?
For sure. So we're hiring across the board, and our head count is around 120, 140-ish now. So we've hired about 100 over the past year, and we're looking to double that over the next year. That's one of the reasons why we raised that large amount of capital. So huge opportunities across the board, whether it be operations, marketing, engineering, etc. I think there's two different vectors that we're looking to hire from. So the first one is finding the best people in the industry. So we're able to get people from like Ring, Spotify, Uber, like all these really cool names where they have like top notch experience to take us to the end. And then I think that other vector that we're coming off of is people that are scrappy, that are willing to maybe take a step back to take a step forward, which is something that I ended up doing. And that's mainly found in like the operation side. So if you like started in customer support, I've been able to help some people like start there, and then they move on to like fraud, or they move on to trust and safety or partnership, some of these other things where you earn your stripes because you don't necessarily have that pedigree coming in, but you're capable of it. It just takes some time for you to show it. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities for everyone there across the board. Great company, and would love to chat with anyone interested.
Yeah, so Whatnot has a booth. So if you're interested in working for Whatnot, definitely check out the booth after this session. Elisha can share more information with you. So one thing that I wanted to kind of ask, just to wrap up the session, it's like we talked about, we connected about a year back when you reached out and said, hey, you wanted to give back to Hawaii. What is the best way to do that? I think the question I had on my mind at the time was, oh, why is giving back so important to this guy? That he's making such a concerted effort to reach out and ask and so on. So maybe, if you could just share it with the audience today, why is giving back so important to you? And how others
being honest,
yeah.
I like being honest. I wouldn't be where I was, and I'm not like by any means like there yet, but I want to be where I am now if it weren't for people supporting me and like taking time out of their day, or recommending me to other people, or giving that advice that I'm taking notes on and applying in my own life. So come from the same mindset of, if I can set someone up, or if I can even like give them an idea or inspire, it goes a lot farther than what I could do on my own. And especially in regards to Hawaii, like growing up in Nanakulu, mindset and setting that standard of excellence was something that I really wanted to hone in and make it in order to help people moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So how would you, any advice for people who, could do the same, I guess?
Yeah. What I'd say is like, you never know, like just always have good intentions, always work hard, and you never know where that's going to pay off. So whether that be starting your own startup and you get to meet someone super cool that ends up helping you transition to another job, or whether that be volunteering somewhere and impacting someone's life, like you don't know how it's going to pay off. I have no idea what, like being on this call, there may be someone watching, etc. Like just putting yourself like from the very beginning in that position to succeed by always having good intentions in what you're doing and always working hard. And I'm satisfied at the end of the day, regardless of the outcome, if I'm doing those two things.
Oh, awesome. So, we might have fresh graduates, tuning in. We would also have probably experienced professionals tuning in. What is, one advice you will want to leave with the audience, today, to walk away with?
For sure. Yeah. I would say find someone in your industry, like I had mentioned on LinkedIn, build that relationship, be willing to drop $40 to go to a drive-in and talk to them, to end up getting like a job with them 2-3 years later. Like having that long-term mindset. But when you reach out to people, and definitely reach out to people in the same field that you want to be in, because whether that be a connection or learning, there's a lot of value to take from that. And then I think grabbing them lunch or something goes a long way, because they're like, oh, they're actually putting their money where their mouth is. They're actually like interested in learning, and they have like good intentions behind it. Is super important.
Yeah, so using all whatever you just said to kind of create future opportunities for yourself, right? Even they may not be apparent right now. So just to wrap up the session, what's next for you, Elisha, going forward? Maybe for the rest of 2022, if we don't want to think too far out. Who knows?
I would
what's
be
gonna
silly to
happen.
say I knew, but I mean, we're in like just to give perspective of the scope of the business, we've done about we've moved from 7 figures in sales to 9 figures. So single millions to hundreds of millions over the past 12 months. And that's in like a small section of collectibles, which is a small section of everything we want to go into, which is a small section of e-commerce. So I think it's needless to say we're not mainstream yet. And I think once that happens, it's going to be berserk.
How about for you on a personal front? What's
Personal fronts, I'm getting married in June.
Woo!
I'm actually getting married in the North Shore, so I'll be back for like a month or so. Definitely gonna soak
Wow.
that up. Gonna go to Makapu'u, go to Sandy's, get some Liliha Bakery, and then planning on moving to LA, where our headquarters are.
Wow, congratulations on that.
Thank
I'm so
you.
excited for you. But I really want to thank you for, taking the time out of your, busy schedule today to talk to us and share, your wonderful stories with our audience, and also, for helping, to recruit people here in Hawaii for, awesome positions and whatnot. So I really thank you for, opportunities that you're giving back to us as well, to the state, and helping local residents here. For everyone else who's listening in, just a reminder that we have recorded this great session with Elisha, and we will make the recordings available to you after the event today. So you can rewatch it again. But in the meantime, feel free to talk to him directly in the Whatnot booth. And I wish you all the best in your job hunting and future career opportunities. Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Ellen. Thank you for
Elisha.
having me.
Thank you.